Ron Tato, Westwood Road. A couple of questions. Number one, just a clarification, which amendments deal with workforce housing specifically? Out of the 6. 3 and 5. 3 and 5? Okay.
Another question?
Yeah, more or less a comment, Mr. Moderator.
Just keep it brief.
I will keep it as brief as I can. I want to commend the planning board for what they've done and all the work they've done. It's been an arduous project. When I was in the board back in 2000, this was coming up. So it's been going on for a long period of time, folks. And they're doing something to protect us. It's not enough, but they're doing something to protect us. So you need to make up your own mind whether 5 houses, 5 apartments is too many or what. If it's too many, vote no, and they'll go back and visit it and do something different. Okay? The other problem we have, and it's been going on in this town since this town that was born, we have the NIMBY syndrome. Okay? Get that out of your head and think about everybody else, not just your backyard. And think about the town as a whole and who can do it better.
He's a builder.
Ma'am, behind the camera.
I'm going to read a little excerpt here from Workforce Housing Quick Reference Guide, if I may.
Who's your name and address?
Sandra, La Salandra, Callback Road. This is your New Hampshire housing. Just a little bee in your bonnet. Remove or loosen building permit limitations and phasing requirements. Such restrictions can substantially add to the cost of a development. Allow homes to be built on backlots with limited road frontage requirements. Reduce minimum frontage requirements with road costs ranging from $200 to $600 per foot. This can result in significant savings. Increase density and allow lot sizes to be dictated by soil suitability for on-site surface sewage disposal. Reduce road width requirements. In most residential developments, 20 to 22 feet of pavement width is adequate for low-volume residential street access. Review current construction standards pertaining to stormwater drainage and utilities. Where appropriate, using open drainage can significantly reduce costs compared to curb and closed drainage conditions. Reduce minimum yard and setback requirements, including wetland setbacks. Wetland setbacks. Permit the construction of a variety of housing types, including duplex, triplex, townhouses, garden-style, cluster buildings. Waive or reduce impact fees and growth management limits for qualifying projects. It doesn't sound like anyone has to qualify. You can just come in and put up whatever you want. This is your town.
Is this your question, ma'am?
It's not a question, it's a statement. It's scaring the life out of me.
And unfortunately, you're scared about something that these amendments do not contain.
Yes.
Okay?
Oh, what they do.
What you are reading from, I believe,
This is workforce housing from New Hampshire.
it is a list of things to consider that you could amend your ordinance to include.
No.
This board is like your Chinese menu. There are how many ever dishes that you could select on the menu. This board has selected these few for your consideration. It's not the Chinese menu that you just read. I'm sorry, but you're...
It's there. It's there. If our fair share is so nebulous and there's no cap letting us know when it's going to stop, do you really want to consider what could go on?
The voters decide if these amendments pass. If 5 years from now, whenever, the planning board members who are then sitting at the table wish to consider other items on the menu that you just read, they would have to come back to that town meeting to get the approval. It just doesn't happen It has to be here.
And then they get the builder's remedy. I mean, we're getting,
No, we're trying to
short-sighted.
block the builder's remedy, ma'am. I think
I'm scared.
I understand you're
This
scared.
lady up here had a question.
Yeah, Marsh Martell. 1 minute, everybody's saying it's not gonna affect our taxes. The other way, I heard Dick Gardner say that it's gonna be renters coming in here too. Who do you think's gonna cover the renters' fees? The taxes. Renters don't pay taxes. That's gonna be put on us.
Renters pay taxes.
Not as much as we do, and when you get low housing people in here, I'm not cutting low housing people, but we're even low housing because we don't make enough money. But when you get more people here in town, that means our roads and everything are gonna be so much worse than what they already are now. This is gonna affect us really bad. So I wanna know why 1 minute they're saying it's not gonna affect our taxes, and the other way it's going to, because when you start letting renters come in, more renters out of these 5 units, let's say 5 units come in, you've got 3 to 4 bedrooms per unit, you're looking at so many kids coming into our school district.
May I respond this way? Every house in this town can currently be rented. It is one of the bundles of sticks that you as a property owner have. If you want to go to Florida year-round, if you want to be there in August, Godspeed, but that is the right you have as the property owner, to
Right.
rent that place. You, as the owner, are still paying the taxes. You are hopefully charging your tenant enough to make some money and cover those taxes. Otherwise, you're renting it too low. So in this situation, the fact that it's renter or owner, the ordinance and the statute cover both. And the definition of what is affordable is modified by whether it's owner-occupied or renter. Okay, that's what the statute sets up. That's where the difference of how do you define. But taxes are paid.
But I'm not talking specifically about that. I'm talking about if you get one house in there with cluster housing, let's say, you have one house per development, or let's say a developer comes in, puts 5 houses there. Now, if a developer comes in, he can put how many in? You're looking at 5 per.
It
You're
depends.
looking at a lot more on that.
You're making a generalization that really has to be limited back to the specifics of the property. Okay, what the ordinance would allow is for a building to have at most 5 dwelling units. But that is a definitional issue. That building has to find the right piece of ground that it can fit on, that has the right place for a septic system for those 5 units, that has the right place for a well for those 5 units. So all of that has to combine, to coalesce in the right location. It has to have a market that the developer is willing to put their money out to say, hi, this is going to be worthwhile enough.
Yes.
They're going to be paying taxes based on how much that property is now worth. A parcel that has 5 apartments on it is worth something in the market based on the rents. Okay?
But now we're opening it up for a lot more area in our town than what it was proposed before for cluster housing.
Correct. That is from the standpoint of the multifamily, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, multifamily was only in the red. Okay? That would not have passed muster. I can tell you that. I can give you very few guarantees in my practice. But saying that small corner of Sanborton is the only place that you're legally allowed to have multifamily would not have passed muster. But on the issue of taxes, sorry, and I think I've got it. I'll sit down. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it might be, if you want to put up an apartment building with 5 units, that's going to be 5 family units. And if you're gonna put it into a zone, let's say you're gonna put it into a residential zone that requires an acre and a half, you need 5 times 1.5. You need a 7.5 acre piece of property to put that 5-family multi-unit in there. In other words, you cannot put more families on a piece of land with multi-family than you can with single families. It's only the form of the building that we're changing here. So, and I understand why, it's the difference between a building and a housing unit, okay? We call the family unit something that one family lives in. The building is not the unit, that's the dwelling. So, the multifamily does not allow you to put any more people on a piece of land than it already can build next to Mark on single families. Okay? With this exception. Okay? And the exception is this 10%. If somebody has a cluster zone, which we already encourage because it requires people to set aside open space. We're trying to do that with this rural thing, so for, I don't know how many years, 10, 20 years, Sanborton has had a cluster zone. It says, if you set aside 50% of your land, we'll let you build houses or units on much smaller pieces of land, much smaller flats. And once you get to 10 pieces, 10 units, we'll give you even a bonus of 10%. So if you could have put 10 single-family units on this land, you're doing a cluster, we like that open space, we'll let you build 11 single families. And now, with these amendments that we're talking here, and this is the only real incentive for workforce housing that this whole thing includes, we're saying that if you start off with a workforce housing project, as the attorney was explaining, you come in, that's what I want to do, and all that. You have that same piece of property that started out as 10 single-family houses, and already today, you could build 11 cluster zones on. You come in and say, well, I want my cluster to be workforce housing. We'll give you one more. One more family. Guys, a lot of towns have done things like was listed on that Chinese menu. A lot of the towns, and we talked about them. And we had consultants who came in and wanted us to do that and said, oh no, you're not doing enough. I don't think you're doing enough to keep yourself safe here. Some of our consultants, the people and they were all free consultants except for this one.
I just think it would have been better if you guys would have done your homework and let us know what towns actually have work housing.
We've done our homework, ma'am.
In the interest of time, it is now 8 minutes before 9. We promised right up at the beginning that the legislator from Alton would be allowed some time to speak at the end. Now we get to the point where we can wrap up or...
No, she's there.
I just have one question on Amendment 5. Was it a unanimous decision of the planning board, or was there opposition? And what was the opposition?
Let me answer that. There were 4 votes for, 1 abstained.
No, that's supposed to be.
You abstained.
On the entire amendment was not on that one.
Number 5.
Yes. When we first voted on each amendment, when we finished each amendment, I'm the person who voted no. And I voted no basically because all through this process, I said over and over again, I don't want us giving anything more to a developer of workforce housing than we would give to you if you were building on your own. My feeling was that if we allowed this many houses with this for the people who live here and everybody else, why were we giving that one extra lot to the person who was doing workforce housing? So I voted no on it. When it came to the final voting on the amendments, I abstained, and I abstained because I was in favor of all the others, but I wasn't in favor of one. So if I voted yes, I'd be voting in the one I didn't want. If I voted no, I'd be voting out the 4 or 5 I did want. So I abstained. And next year, I hope we do all of our amendments one at a time, so I can vote yes and no.
Quick, make it quick, Andy. I don't trust you.
This infamous Morrison Road piece of property that is owned by the developer at this moment, if he comes into the planning board at the next meeting and says to you, I'm taking that piece of property and I'm going to do workforce housing on it, do you have more control with those amendments or without them?
Can I answer that? Mr. Moderator? We have more control with the amendments in cluster zoning. I asked everybody the first time they come here to read the RSA, put nothing into it that's not there, don't take anything out of it that's not there. I also asked them to read the cluster zoning ordinances in its complete entirety, not adding or taking from. Just read it. If you get the paper that's in the town office right now, I'd like you to go to the last page, and there's 10 items underneath the bottom of that page. Read what they have to meet in order to put that in the cluster zoning, and you will understand why we decided to do that. We have not changed an ordinance in this town in order to cover our butts, for lack of a better word. All we did was say, allow us, if a developer comes to this town, to tell them, and he tells us he wants workforce housing, yes, you can put it in this town, but you have to go under our cluster zoning ordinance. That's the only thing we're asking. We have control over it. We can control what happens. You take the same cluster zone developer, and he comes in the way our ordinances are today, he'll come in and say, I want to go into cluster zoning, and the planning board cannot give him anything that ordinance doesn't allow us to do, nor can we take away from him what that ordinance does not allow us to do. He will say, I can't live with it, you're too restrictive, goodbye. I'm going to go here to Laconia and talk to the judge. It's just that simple. You know, you do what you want. The voters will make the decision. All I can say to you is, if you don't do anything, there is no option to not doing anything. We have to do something. And it'd be no more than come flu season, you go get the flu shot after you got the flu. We're here as one person. The planning board works for the town. That is not true. We're all volunteers up here on this board, and we donate our time to the town. And for the last 10 years and forever 30 years, the town thought we were making some darn good decisions to protect the town. And I think the people that live up on Morrison Road seem to forget that 3 members on this board were here when they fought Rick Lapine, and if it wouldn't have been for them 3 members, that his plan would have passed. They've got a short memory.
Are you singling us out?
I did not interrupt.
I am offended. Yeah. You are singling us out.
We paid a huge lawsuit.
Yeah, we had that lawsuit.
Okay. Let's hear from her as we promised we would do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
This is a Sanborton meeting from the Sanborton board for Sanborton taxpayers. And there are Sanborton people here that have questions, and I'm sorry, this is not her time. She made a political speech.
We need to hear what other towns have.
Her speech is somewhere else.
She's here to benefit us.
Can we vote on it?
We made a deal at the beginning of the meeting. to allow her to speak at the end, and I think that we should move to that.
Thank you, Scott. I'll be very brief. You know, my name is Jane Cormier. I'm from Alton, and this is my 5th town that I've been sort of going to when the workforce housing situation has been popping up. Believe it or not, I really don't have a political horse in this race. It concerns me to no end that sometimes everybody isn't informed about why the hard push is happening to take the workforce housing, which came into effect into 210, in the full picture. That we're having, I'm assuming, the discussion tonight because of the grant from the New Hampshire Housing Association, is that correct? Right, to fulfill a grant, which Alton had the exact same grant last year, to fulfill a grant that actually comes from HUD, that goes to the New Hampshire Housing, that then comes to either Alton or Sanborton or Rep. John Bird's place. Goffstown. They're pretty much all over the place. And these grants, usually around 30,000, ours was around 30, I think yours was around 30 as well, has some really fundamental stuff in there to, when you get the money, you have to fulfill the grant. And part of the grant is to identify any barriers to the creation of workforce housing. Okay? So, and I'm not saying this to make a bad statement or demonize to anybody, but some of the RPCs, Regional Planning Commissions, do indeed have a dog in the race in this way. If they go to the voter and they quote, they call it educate you, as to what the ramifications are to not comply with the 2010 workforce housing, and it's always the same, you're going to get sued. I've heard it 5 times. I heard it in my own town.
Okay,
No, please, sir.
How much time do you think this is?
Okay, you know what? I know you're not worried about Alton, but I love New Hampshire, and I love New Hampshire local control. And by the way, I get $200 for the 2 years that I have served as a representative here in New Hampshire, and I am here to just try to impart information. Should anybody here want to see perhaps a presentation on the other side of the fence, which may impact, this is changing your zoning laws dramatically. And you have the right to understand what that means. Get all the information. Don't be afraid of the information. And then you can vote knowing exactly what you're voting on. And my suggestion is if you decide that you would like to have a presentation, I would be happy to come back. You give us a date, I will come back. I'll come back with people to go through the document that your town signed, to do what we're doing here tonight and what's in that document, so that you can see what really is at stake. So you can get in touch with me if you're so inclined. I'd be happy to come up here. I'm not trying to rain on anyone's parade. And I wish Sanborton all the best. You're a beautiful community. You should keep your identity, and you should keep your rural identity. It's a beautiful community. And I thank you, sir, very much for the time.
I'd like to make one statement. By the way, Alton did pass the workforce.
People in Alton did vote for workforce housing. So let's just.
And we need to defend it 2-1.
Yeah, we need to consider.
But not the way it's being proposed.
In response to Andy's question about looking what you could do different now than tomorrow, right now we can only build single-family houses on that property. If it passes, we can build multi. And those multi-family units only need to be 10 feet to the sidewalk.
But no more families in what
No,
Bill
no,
Wells
no,
described.
no,
Same number of families, just a style different. One of the ways to make a housing.
It's time to wrap it up.
I have one question.
There's one thing that needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
When Andy asked if comparing what they were trying to put in before and what they could do today, there's no comparison because the rules that they were working under last time was senior housing, that has been taken out of our ordinances entirely. So what he was asking was for the board to compare what's in there now against senior housing, which is.
Remind folks, there is a second meeting on the morning of Saturday, May 10th. Similar presentation. And we'll all be there. I think you guys are over the time, sir.
Candidates,
On which night? Morning.
Refreshments over here, guys.
Take the cookies. Thanks for being here.
Croc TV.